Yeah, I'm Bob Mosley. I work with Beacon Health, and I always thought of this idea years ago because I've been meditating for over 30 years, and I kind of did a detour. I kind of meditated for 10 years, then I got into doing a lot of clinical hypnosis and stuff like that. Kind of veered off. And then my daughter called me up about 10 years ago and said, "Dad, you need to get back on and meditate." She's in San Francisco. And she was telling me about all the great research that's been done on TM. And that's always been the first thing that has attracted me. Number one, it's not a religious, not anything with religion in that sense. It's a mental technique, and they'll explain that, and that anybody can do. And the other is the tremendous research. It's the most researched meditation technique in the country or the world, and I really care for all you guys. And you guys do social justice work, and I've been involved a long time in the civil rights struggle, and you guys, that's part of your blood as well. And but I see the stress that people are under. And this is a real simple technique. This is not an elaborate, but you got to be trained in it. And so what they're going to do is talk to you about that and about some of the research, which has been great with veterans, people with PTSD in Africa. They do a lot of volunteer work in the city of Detroit, Baltimore. Just all over the country. They can't keep up with the demand, doing it for free in high-stress schools. So anyway, I just wanted to introduce it to you because I found out GM is doing it, and because it's ETAP. And so ETAP will plug right into that. So I said, man, I want to tell my people about it. So that's kind of, I just found that out a couple months ago, and I just wanted to share it with everybody. Any questions? Or?
You want to introduce?
Yeah, this is James Kahaney. James,
Hi, my name is James Kahaney, and I'm the Regional Director in Southeast Michigan of the Transcendental Meditation Program. This is my wife, Linda. She's the co-director of the program. And Dr. Stephen Tebow is a medical doctor in the Beaumont Health System, and he has been prescribing and using Transcendental Meditation himself for about, how long, Steve?
Math, I was 15, 16.
So he's been doing it for about 40 years.
Yeah.
As many of these people who endorse our program, famous people on television like George Stephanopoulos and Jerry Seinfeld, and all these famous people endorse our program for free because of the outreach we have with the community, doing good works and teaching people who are underprivileged and so on. And also, they endorse it because they enjoy it so much. In many cases, people have said that it saved their life, including top TV personalities, because TM eliminates or reduces stress. And so when you get rid of your stress, then you really start to feel really good. And this is why people continue to do TM for 30 years or 40 years or 45 years. Is because every day when you get up, you get that recharge. So I would like to start by showing a brief video clip of the gentleman who's calling in about 5 minutes, Dr. Bobby Roth. He's the president of the David Lynch Foundation, who pays for many of these outreach programs. The David Lynch Foundation is a nonprofit that works with our 501c3 nonprofit educational organization. And we teach around the world. So we have outreaches in all these schools with the veterans, with people who have been abused, and so on. And so we'll play this video now, and that'll give you a little bit of understanding of who Bob is, who Bobby Roth is, and then he'll be calling in here in just a second. Thank you. Do you want to introduce the...
Well, why don't you go ahead and say who you are?
Okay, I'm Marquise Hamilton. I work over at Dearborn Truck Plant.
I invited him to come.
I'm Pam Balders. I work here at the local.
Bernie Rickey, I work here at the local.
Brenda Gamble, I work
Peaches Anderson, I work here at the local.
Okay.
Rebecca Davies. I work here at the local.
Linda Bemis, I'm the bookkeeper at the local.
Chris Pence, I just struggling up the street.
You what? What?
Tell me this struggling it down the
Oh,
street.
no.
Street urchin?
Yeah.
Marty Ulick, I also work here at the law.
Thank you for introducing yourself. So we'll start with this brief clip here.
Jerry Seinfeld, also our special guest here, Bob Roth, executive director of the David Lynch Foundation. We're all here because we all have something in common. We all practice transcendental meditation, which I didn't know about until I learned it from you, and you taught me how to do it after Jerry introduced it. And I think people don't really understand exactly what it is and what a difference it's made in people's lives. You've been doing it for
I've been 40 years this year, 40 years of TM. Now you just started doing
2
it,
years. I'm in my second year.
and you have this insane job, right?
You learned all about this morning.
Yeah, we have to get up at like 9 at night to get here, and then
it makes all the difference.
it makes a difference.
It makes a huge
But it's very hard to explain. You know how I was describing it to somebody? I was saying it's like having a, you know, your phone has a charger. It's like if you had a charger for your whole body and mind. That's what TM
And you said something very important to me when we first started, because it was one of the questions I had. You said, this is not a religion. It's a technique. It's compatible with all kinds of religions. What it really does is try to get the stress out of your life, and now scientists are finding real health benefits.
Well, the whole idea is that we have very active, noisy levels of the mind, that we sort of got to go here, got to do this, got to do that. But every human being has deep within a settled, calm, silent level of their mind. And this transcendental meditation is just an effortless way to have the active, excited mind settle down, experience that inner calm. At the same time, the body gains a very deep state of rest. That rest eliminates stress. You have more energy, wakes up the brain, and you guys can do your job.
And the American Heart Association actually says it works.
No, the American Heart Association just came out with a study a month ago that showed that transcendental meditation highly effective for reducing high blood pressure, for reducing risk of stroke, and actually reducing mortality rates by almost 50% from people who've been meditating for 5 years.
Well,
And they find that hosting morning television is the opposite.
Yeah,
all of it. Yeah.
So I'm just keeping it in balance.
Yeah,
Basically,
you die the exact same day. You would, yeah.
That's really
Yeah.
reassuring, Jerry. Thanks very
You're
much. You're also doing some very. I'm going to move over.
Yeah.
Some very exciting work you guys are doing, because it's not just it can help anybody, but you guys are going into schools right now, helping at-risk kids, helping soldiers coming back from Iraq, Afghanistan, who are suffering from post-traumatic stress. Also, women who've been victims of violence.
Well, I mean, for example, the Department of Defense just provided a $2 million grant to study the effects of transcendental meditation on post-traumatic stress disorder. The fact is, as Forbes magazine said, stress is the black plague of the 21st century. It's an ugly thing. It can't be prevented. It can't be cured by conventional means. And now this technique, this particular meditation technique, has been shown to be highly effective in eliminating post-traumatic stress disorder. And so it's being used in schools where kids have, whether they're, young children in the urban centers have the same symptoms of PTSD as soldiers coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. It's interesting that something so ancient and traditional, and not a religion, and not a philosophy, and not a change in lifestyle, anyone can do it, that something that simple can have such a profound impact on very modern ailments.
And we're seeing, as you say, the government get involved and really try to promote it and really multiply how good of a difference that can come from it all.
There's a military college in Vermont called Norwich University, and the president, Admiral Schneider, he feels, we're offering TM there to his cadets, he feels that this should be a part of basic training because it adds resiliency. It adds resiliency, so the immune system to stress is strengthened.
Jerry, thanks for coming in and talking about it.
Thanks, George.
Okay, and tonight I'll be hosting a benefit for the Foundation and All-Star Night of Jazz right here at Lincoln Center in Manhattan. You can find out more about it at davidlynchfoundation.org. And coming up, it's Golden Globes morning. Modern Family and Sophia Vergara. That's just the beginning. We'll have the rest just ahead.
So that's Dr. Bob Roth. He'll be calling in a few minutes to talk to y'all about his program and his new book, Strength and Stillness, which is talking about, I want to quote Jerry Sullivan, who is a past president here at your union, and he had a great quote that I just saw on the wall there, and I wanted to quote him. And he said, "The strength of our union is forged from within." And I think that that's what Transcendental Meditation is going to offer the members of the Ford unions across the country, GM or any company, because it really gives you life back. It's something that is really beneficial for people. You know, who is it that is going to take care of you? You know, the union has done their part in helping you get a working wage, but with Transcendental Meditation, it really helps you maintain your health. It helps you reduce and eliminate stress. We have some great research that's come out recently. The federal government has spent $650 million trying to find out a treatment for PTSD for veterans. And the 25 veterans a day or active duty military commit suicide every day in the country, in the United States. So after all the research that's been done trying to find a treatment for this, they found that Transcendental Meditation actually can eliminate the symptoms of PTSD within 30 days. And this is unheard of. But the veterans aren't the only ones with stress. Everybody in the country has stress. And so this is the great benefit that we want to bring to you folks who have worked hard all your life and really deserve something that can help you maintain your quality of life. So we're going to have Dr. Roth. I shouldn't call him doctor. He just goes by Bobby. Bobby Roth is a PhD in and so he's going to call in right now. And so, is there any any questions that you guys have about the program? Anything? So, yes, sir.
How long is the program?
This program today,
No, the program.
the Transcendental Meditation program is a very simple, user-friendly, easy to implement technique that you can implement into your daily life. Somebody said there's 1,441 minutes in a day. And TM takes 40 minutes a day. You do 20 minutes in the morning before you go to work and 20 minutes in the afternoon. But what happens when you do that, you get so recharged and energized that it gives you time in your day, that you actually start to feel like you've got more energy than you had before. So people find that they just get more done. They're more organized. They're thinking more clearly. And we're going to show some remarkable research on what it does for your brain function. You know, Alzheimer's is a big challenge in the world today. And, you know, many people are worried about, you know, maintaining their mental capabilities as they get older. And Transcendental Meditation really activates the whole brain. So this is a huge benefit, which we'll show you the research on in just a second. So is he calling in?
I know, but I connected you to the internet.
Okay, great.
To learn it.
He was talking about how long did it take to learn.
Oh, how long does it take to learn it? I'm sorry. Transcendental Meditation, basically after today's lesson is an introduction to the program. So this is a thing that everybody would do when they start. But then there are 4 days in a row, 4 consecutive days that you would go through classes. Classes usually run about an hour to an hour and a half, maximally for 4 days. And we could do it in a class situation like this, except for the first day when you're instructed in the program and you actually get your technique of meditation. But after that, it could be a group setting like this. So it's 4 days in a row. Usually we try to get people on their day off, or, you know, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday after work, something like that.
Or lunch hour here.
Or a lunch hour, we could do it, you know, people coming in. So that was a good question. Yeah, it takes 4 days. And then we have free lifetime follow-up. Once you learn this technique, you can go to any TM center in the United States, 150, 200 locations in any city, and meet with any teacher, do a group meditation session with many individuals, or meet privately with the teacher. It's free for life after you do this, after you're instructed in the technique. Yes.
How many per class would it be like?
We could do, depending on how many teachers we have, but we could do 15 to 20 in a class. Or we could do more if we brought in teachers. We could do 40, 50, 60 people. Just depends. It's nice to be with friends when you do this. You know, people enjoy it, the experience, being together.
And family also.
Yes, family too. Because once the family members see the change in you, then they want it. They want part of the action. So, yeah. So is
Is he there?
I don't know. Maybe
Come in. Austin, come in. I want to part of this. Hey, Austin, come on in. Be part of this.
so.
Stress.
Bobby should be calling in here any second. Maybe I'll call him.
Now, I have a question for you when
Yeah.
it comes to you're discussing veteran treatment of PTSD.
Yes.
Can I ask you a favor, please? Don't use the word eliminate because PTSD doesn't get eliminated from our lives. Okay.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay, so it doesn't get eliminated. It's something we cope with as veterans.
Yes, that's true.
So thank you for changing that for me.
Okay.
The other thing I'd like to ask is when you have veteran-based communities that you're working and helping with coping skills through this,
Right.
do you do veteran-specific workshops, or do you integrate the veterans into the rest of your
We
classroom?
can do. Sometimes veterans feel more comfortable together,
Correct.
so we can do a veteran training program. You know, with only veterans, and I think that very often works very well. Yeah. So we did a pilot study at Saginaw with the VA up there with about 40 veterans participating in the program, and we saw remarkable changes in their quality of life within a month. And so, but the veterans really enjoyed being together, so we could set that up.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
What's the cost? Because we have a variety of different things. We have a lot of board members that
Yeah.
are covered by ETAP, but we have members who don't have education.
Yeah, so it just depends on, and if we used to have the program was set for the same for everybody. It was around $1,000 for everybody, and that's free lifetime program. But Ford, GM are paying for now for their under their TAP program. But for people who don't, it's a really nice thing about something that happened recently is it's according to your income. So people can pay the standard price of $960 or $1,000, whatever it is, at the top limit, and other people pay, veterans and people who are disabled that come into our center and stuff can pay as little as $300, $380, and $90 down to start. And you pay that initial $95 payment, and you can take all the classes. So it can, you know, it's according to your income level. If you come to our location, to our offices, it'll be, you know, much more flexible in the cost. If we have to come down here to train people, you know, we'll have to talk about that for, you know, individuals to see. But we try to make it as flexible as possible so that anybody can learn the program, because the cost of the program is no longer a limitation. So he didn't call in. I could call him.
On that little subject, just a personal note, in my own practice in 25 years, when I recommended it to patients, and money is an issue, there's no question. I don't like this, but I've always thrown it out there to my patients. It was so important to me for them to have it available. I said, look, take the course, 2 hours, 1 to 2 hours, 4 days in a row.
Hey,
Or something you have for a lifetime.
Yeah,
Do it I used to say 6 months, now I even say 3 months. Do it consecutively for 3 months. Come back to me, you tell me, Doc, you wasted my time. You wasted my money and my time. I'll pay you the money back.
Yeah, just don't.
Out of my own pocket. In 25 years, I've never
Yeah.
had one person come back and ask for it. It's pretty amazing.
If you don't have ETAP,
Yeah, come
He's
see
your
me.
doc.
There you go.
Well, the reason I asked is
I have a lot of confidence in that.
is we have about 65% of our locals Ford.
Okay.
So 35% isn't. And a lot of the ones that aren't make less money.
Right.
So we have arrangements with different schools that if we have a certain amount of people covered under ETAP, they'll give us X amount of slots for free.
Oh,
For like IPS and TOP that doesn't have the benefits. And
right.
I'm just, that's the reason I asked, because we've
Well,
done
we-
that regularly with other type of classes.
We've done programs with schools where everybody learns for free. But we have to have some funding from some other source.
No, that's the reason,
Yeah.
there's some agreed ratio,
Yes.
that you have to have so many ETAP people,
Yes.
and then, like, we just did that with Michigan State and labor studies.
Okay.
We had a certain amount of people that had the benefits, and they let, because most of the IPS and TOP, it's independent part supplier, TOP is technical office professional,
Yeah.
which is like, could be nurses, could be, they don't have the education benefits, could be a dental clinic or
Right.
or
Well,
eye
we-
clinic, vision clinic.
Well, we
that
found
don't
some.
have the education benefits, so we tried to do a mix, have an agreement with a ratio. You get so many GTAP people, we might get so many slots, but you have to have the paying people to support that.
Yeah, well, we have actually found that some hospital systems will pay for this, for their nurses and doctors. So we just have to, talk to them and see what's available for their, educational system. Many companies have that kind of, educational, support for their. So now we have this call from Bob Roth. He is Bob Roth is the.
Hi, okay, we'll put you on just one sec.
And Bob Roth is the president of the David Lynch Foundation that's dedicated to raising money to teach 1 million school children to meditate. And
Here, let's see.
and we are.
Okay, so
Can- can-
wait, I need
yeah.
your help. So these are here. You're not.
I'm stressed, very stressed.
I can remove some stress.
Hi Bob, we're having trouble getting you connected to our video equipment here. Could I just call you back when things are better that way?
Marty, these ETAP workers, Bernie stressed me. He said he wants stress treatment to keep me awake.
Yours is recap.
Yeah.
Mine retest.
Not gonna comment on that.
He already saved me $450. I'm gonna hear that the rest of my life.
And I saved you a lot more than you
Hi Bob.
You was trying to get her back.
How?
Not taking it
No,
up.
I can see me on my phone, but I can't see.
Took it out of their money, that general fund, right? Just not paying itself for rent.
Just so you know, there's audio.
There's food in the back.
Food in the back. There's food.
They do that again, Marty, start coughing loud.
So while we're waiting,
Yes,
how
sorry.
well does, in the veteran community, we have a lot of, as you said, a lot of PTSD issues, but a lot of those are also misdiagnosed.
Yes.
And they're actually TBI, which is
Oh, yes.
which is a whole different situation, because that's an actual physical disorder when you have a traumatic brain injury
Yes.
versus PTSD issue.
Yes, we have actually found that TM is very effective with TBI as well. And so we're going to cover that in the section when we talk about veterans. But we have him on live.
Oh,
now,
terrific.
so
Thank you.
We'll let him go ahead and we'll answer that question in just a minute.
Hi.
Bobby, we have to turn up the volume here. Go ahead. Tigers.
They need to meditate.
They need to hit the pitcher, but okay.
Yeah, we need to get it on. His father was born in Detroit.
That's all you advertise.
Well, here's the
You gotta turn
problem,
you up.
is that we have no volume here for some reason. It's not going through the television. We can hear you at a close range, but not far away. Here, we have the speakers we're going to plug in right now. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what we do without Linda. Okay, let's try that again. Turn those on now.
How's that?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
much better.
Here?
Yeah, that's much better. Okay.
What about your father?
So my father grew up in the Depression in Detroit, and he worked hard. He put himself through medical school delivering the Detroit News at Wayne State, and he was a World War II medic. But I taught TM in Detroit in 1982 to 1984, and I've been teaching meditation for 45 years, and those 2 years I taught in Detroit were I met the best people. My closest friends of my whole life are my friends from Detroit, and I love Detroit. And I was there. I don't know if you guys are old enough when the Tigers went 17-1, 35-5, and they won the World Series in 1984 with Bernie Harwell calling every game. Those were golden days, other than the bad boys, the Pistons. So anyway, I travel all over the world, but I'm always following Detroit teams. So, Jim, did you get a chance to define what Transcendental Meditation is?
We just been basically doing just introductory things as introducing ourselves and so on. So you can.
So my question is, how many of you have tried, if you want to admit it or not, some form of meditation, or in your life?
About 4 or 5.
And the other 8, not so much.
Not so much.
And does the word meditation, for most of you, is it have sort of weird? Let me preface this by saying, I'm not your typical meditation teacher. When you think of what a word meditation teacher, and I'm sure Jim and Linda are the same, I'm like really practical. I'm a skeptic. I'm not into woo-woo or new age stuff. I love stuff to be practical and down to earth and scientific. And so there's a lot of misunderstandings around the word, generic word meditation. So how many of you just sort of think the word meditation is just a little too much outside of your comfort zone?
No.
Just a little too weird.
There's one.
Maybe a couple, but not many.
I like the way you wave your hand like that. Like you didn't want other people to see you were waving your hand. Yeah. So what I want to do is, it's such an interesting thing, because when I first learned this almost 50 years ago, you didn't even want to say the word meditation in polite company. It was just too strange. It was a cult, it was a religion, it was a sect, it was for hippies. But it certainly wasn't for anybody who's practical and down to earth and has a family and a job to do and life. It wasn't real. And besides, I pray, or I have my religion, and I don't need some form of something other than that. Well, now we fast forward almost 50 years, and the word meditation, which used to be affiliated with or associated with like wackadoodle, now sometimes people say, well, I don't know what it is, but I could use a little more calm in my life. I could use a little more clarity, a little more focus, a little more energy. I'm finding myself getting a little more anxious than I used to, or overreacting to the kids, or not sleeping as well as I used to, or I need more coffee to get through the day, or more wine to get to sleep at night. Anybody have that experience? Yeah, and so the idea of meditation just sort of miraculously somehow morphed into something positive, but it's still a confusing idea. And so in the next 3.5 hours of my talk, that's a joke. We Detroiters like to talk. In the next few minutes, I want to do a few things. Why is meditation? Why are people taking meditation more seriously? And specifically transcendental meditation. Why are books being written about it? Hospitals provide it to patients. Why are businesses offering it to their employees? Why are military bases? I'm teaching TM on military bases and military colleges all over the country. We're in schools. So professional athletes practice TM. So why? Briefly, I think we've reaching a tipping point. Word meditation is still for some a little strange, but still, all right, I'm willing to listen. I think the tipping point is for 3 reasons. I think the problem of stress is worse than it's ever been before.
Yes.
There's no, with the 24/7 world, particularly with our kids, just not even deadly effects of stress than we knew before from science. Stress undermines the immune system, so if we're stressed we get sick more often. It undermines the digestive system, so we don't metabolize our food like we used to, maybe we gain more weight. It undermines memory and cognitive functioning. It's not a good thing, too much stress. Now, when I'm talking about stress, I'm not talking about pressures and demands and challenges. That's life. I'm talking about how I react to those pressures and demands and challenges. How do I handle it when my kid gets sick and I gotta be at work? Or how do I handle it when there's pressure at work or job uncertainty? That's what I'm calling stress, how I react to that. So the first thing is the way we're reacting to those demands it's killing us over time. Second reason why there's so much interest in meditation these days is because the pharmaceutical companies don't have a magic pill to take that we can take to prevent stress, or if we've got it, cure it. We mask it with a lot of coffee in the morning, alcohol. We manage it with sleeping pills and antidepressant pills and anti-anxiety pills, whatever. Not everybody, but some of us do that. So there's nothing there that stress is, they describe it as a tumor that continues to metastasize in our life. So that's the second reason. Modern medicine's got nothing for us to cure it. And the third reason, and the reason I'm talking to you, and the reason why Jim and Linda, who are phenomenal TM teachers, still getting it together as we all are at my age of trying to figure out technology, but that's another story. Science. There's so much science on some meditations. There's a lot of wackadoodle things. It's like there's a lot of wackadoodle. You say the word medicine and there's a lot of crazy stuff, but there's some serious stuff. You say food, there's healthy food, then there's crazy food. There's certain very substantive meditation techniques that produce very powerful, healthy benefits to mind and body. And at the top of that list is Transcendental Meditation, gold standard. So what I want to do now is give you a brief definition of the meditation, a description of how it works, a touch on some of the research, and then Jim and Linda can take it from there. Okay? All right. Anybody awake?
Oh, yes.
People say I have a very calming voice. That's a nice way of saying that I put people to sleep. So anyway, to explain TM, I like to use an analogy of an ocean. And you're on a little boat, and you're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And all of a sudden, you get these giant 30, 40-foot high waves, big waves. And you can think, oh my gosh, the whole ocean is in upheaval. You're in a little boat, you see this 3-4-story high waves. The whole ocean is in upheaval. Well, the word whole ocean, whole is a bit of an exaggeration. Because if you could do a cross-section of the ocean out there, you realize that while the surface of the ocean can naturally be turbulent, the depth of the ocean is like over a mile deep, and the depth of the ocean is by its nature calm, silent, settled. And we use that as an analogy to the mind. The surface of our mind is like those turbulent, choppy, tsunami-esque waves. And all the thoughts, and I like to call that that level of the mind, I like to call that the gotta mind. I gotta do this, and I gotta do that, and I gotta call him, and I gotta call her, and I gotta make a list, and I gotta find a list, and I gotta make a do list. And I gotta get going, but I gotta slow down, and I gotta get to sleep, but I gotta get up. Anybody? And sometimes that gotta mind I fall asleep at 2 a.m. That mind, gotta mind is going when I gotta get back to sleep, and I can't. So that's that surface. And every human being, whether we're Christian, Jewish, Buddhist, atheist, whatever country, wherever, by virtue of a human being, every one of us has a thought occasionally, I'd like some inner clarity. I'd like some inner calm, some inner peace, some inner creativity, some inner sense of connectedness. We're getting pulled in a million different directions. Someone says, how are you doing? We don't even know who the you is. Because we're pulled in so many directions. But the operative word there is inner calm, clarity. And the question is there such a thing as an inner? And if so, how do we get there? So when we talk about transcendental meditation, we hypothesize. Key word here, hypothesize. That deep within every single human being born on earth, including our out-of-control kids, every single human being has by nature a surface, active, agitated, thinking mind, gotta mind, but we also have by nature deep within a level of our mind where the mind is already settled and calm, like that depth of the ocean, settled and calm and peaceful and yet wide awake. My own inner quiet self. We don't have to believe in it. We don't have to visualize it. Just like I don't have to believe I have a nose. We don't have to believe it. The hypothesis is it's there. And transcendental meditation allows, the problem is we've lost access to it. We're stuck up here with the mind going. It's just noise, go. We're probably even right now when you're trying to pay attention to me, your mind is going off in a million different directions. The mind is like buzzing. And transcendental meditation just allows that active, agitated, thinking mind to settle down and experience a level of the mind, my own self, that's already calm and settled and wide awake.
Hey, Chris?
So two things. People say to me, and you do that for 20 minutes, you experience that inner calm. People sometimes say to me, you do it for 20 minutes, and then they hear the word transcendental. It sounds like trance. By the way, it's not trance, it's to transcend. Whitaker and Trammell transcended second base and shortstop in their prime. So it means to go beyond, to be something exceptional. And in this case, we settle down, we transcend, we settle down. So people say, whoa, 20 minutes, transcendental meditation. How do you know when your 20 minutes are up? And I say, look at your watch. It's like, you're not going anywhere, you're just settling down. The second question is, and this is sort of like, you don't know me, and now I'm talking about this settled state, and it sounds, is this clear? Can you hear me? Is this interesting?
Yeah.
Okay. Even if it wasn't, thank you for nodding. Your parents raised you well. How do we know something is actually happening? How do we know when I close it? Because it looks just like this. And you can do it on a bus, you can do it on a plane, you can do it on a train, you can do it in a car. Someone else is driving. That's a caveat. But it's just sitting comfortably. You can do it on a park bench. How do we know I'm actually experiencing that calm that lies within? From science. Because when we meditate, your body, because mind and body are connected, and I'm going to just touch on this, and Jim and Linda can talk more about it because I don't want to go beyond my 3.5 hours here. That when the mind, you know how if you're anxious in your mind about something, your body's tense. You know that? Yeah. So mind and body are connected. Yeah. So if the mind is just settling down effortlessly, naturally, comfortably, then it must show up in your body, and your body gains a state of rest in many regards deeper than sleep. It gives a state of restful alertness. So, and the benefit of that, I don't know if you or you have friends who suffer from high blood pressure, hypertension. Yeah, that was another good private wave. You can't see in the back, but she's just giving these private waves. There's been more research on transcendental meditation funded by the U.S. government to show that 20 minutes of TM lowers high blood pressure for people who had high blood pressure for years and years more effectively in many regards than antihypertensive medication, but with no hazardous side effects. So the U.S. government has funded research on that, and it's been published in the American Medical Association Journal. So this is a medical fact. Another quick benefit. You ever heard of cortisol? Yeah, cortisol is a hormone that's secreted by the adrenal glands that sit on the kidneys, and is called a stress hormone. And we need a little bit of cortisol to get through the day. The problem is we're just our systems are flooded with cortisol. And cortisol is that thing which fuels, undermines the immune system, all those things I was saying, digestion, memory. If you get a good night's sleep, cortisol levels will drop about 10%. In 20 minutes of this meditation, transcendental meditation, cortisol levels drop 30 to 40%. Now that's not magic. It's because we are accessing a mechanism within the body that we had forgotten how to access. There's a mechanism to take profound rest at will. There's other benefits, reduced, as I said, anxiety, depression, insomnia. On the standpoint of the positives, the reason why more and more companies are looking at this, it reduces sickness and disease, and therefore the bottom line improves health. But even more importantly, it wakes up the brain. So what do we need to do? We need to be able to focus better. We need to have better memory. We need to be able to solve problems. We need to do all these different things. And that starts in the brain. And what the research shows in the brain, and I should say there's 400 studies that have been published in major peer-reviewed journals. I'm not just making this stuff up. It's top journals. And it shows that it wakes up the parts of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, which is involved in those things. Concentration, decision-making, judgment. It wakes up the imagination center in the brain, called network in the brain, called the default mode network. That's the part of the brain that's innovative, that solves problems on the go. So it wakes up the brain. In many regards, I was talking to a cardiologist, and then I'll stop. Am I going way too long, Jim?
No.
No, you're all right, Bobby.
Okay. He calls me Bobby. My mom called me Bobby. Everybody else calls me. Anyway, we exercise. We try and keep fit by going from the neck down. But there's this part of the brain that needs of me that needs attending to. This little 4-pound muscle. And it's all about connections. It's all about, just a second. Okay. It's all about connections. So I was just told I can't move my hands. It's creating a blur. Is that true?
No.
No, Bobby, it's okay.
No, it's okay.
How's this? How's that?
The general rule is to put your hands in your pocket when you're speaking. So I just want to let you know.
Okay. So, but I'm not Italian. It's like, how can I talk without moving my hands? Anyway, the point is a significant amount of research that shows that this transcendental meditation reduces stress and stress-related disorders as effectively, if not more effectively, than standard medications, but without any negative side effects. It also wakes up and raises our performance levels, our clarity, our focus. Really important. Now, I'm just going to say a few things here and then turn it over to Jim and Linda. Because this has been learned by about 8 million people now. In the U.S., close to 3 million people of all religions. This is what TM is not. It is not a religion. It is not a philosophy. There is no change in lifestyle. Anyone can do this. 3 million people in the U.S. have learned to meditate. 85 Christians, people of the Jewish faith, Muslim, everyone can do it, or atheists. So that is it. And sometimes people who don't know, internet, anybody can say anything. They don't know, but the fact is, and how do we know this? Because this technique is now taught on military bases, public schools, all over and businesses all over the country. The Department of Defense has given us gave a $2.4 million grant to study the effects of TM on reducing trauma, particularly post-traumatic stress among veterans. And you may know that 21 veterans commit suicide every day in this country. Every day. And that's nothing about the nightmare that the other hundreds of thousands experience every day. So research that was funded by the Department of Defense showed TM to be as effective, if not far more effective, than anything else the VA has ever done to reduce post-traumatic stress. in the area. We're working with kids in schools now, and the University of Chicago Crime Lab has given us over $3 million to do a major study on kids in some of the toughest schools, public schools in Chicago, 3-year study that shows that TM is more effective for improving academic performance, grades, again, graduation rates, reducing suspensions, reducing arrests. And we're now starting to get funding from the federal government to bring transcendental meditation, we call it quiet time, to the schools. By the way, the first school where it was ever taught, almost 20 years ago, was Nataki Toledo Schoolhouse in Detroit, with Carmen Anamdi. She was pioneering for this, and now I head up a foundation that's provided scholarships for over 600,000 kids in under-resourced schools all over the U.S. and all over the world to learn to meditate for free, and their lives are being transformed. Same now with, as I said, with veterans, and also we're working with women and children who are survivors of domestic violence, but also with the young men who are often the perpetrators. So to finish up here, what we have is a simple tool that anyone can learn. You can be 100% skeptical. You could think everything I just said is just bunk. And the technique works just as well as if you think, oh, I'm into this. I'm Om and I'm into meditation. It doesn't matter. It's like you don't have to believe in gravity. You could disbelieve gravity completely, and you could hold up a pen and drop and let go of the pen, and the pen falls because it's natural. Same with this meditation. So I am very, very deeply moved to get to talk to all of you in Detroit. Ford, I gave talks in 1983 and taught many people at Ford in 1983. Of the big three that I spoke at, Ford was the most receptive at the time. And now anything that I can do to support what you're doing and to support Jim and Linda, count on me. I really think that we can help people. We can help the single mom. We can help the mom and dad, the single dad. We can help people. We can give them a tool that they can have for life. It takes about an hour and a half a day over 4 consecutive days. There's a wonderful sort of follow-up program, but you really learn it in an hour and a half or so a day over 4 consecutive days. And then you've got it. And I'll conclude by telling, there's this one young dad came in with his, a young man, well, I'm old, so he was in his early 40s, so he's like a baby. So anyway, he came in with his son to learn to meditate, and I think I had taught the mom to meditate, and I think the mom had set the dad and the kid in to learn. It was a 14-year-old teenager. And the dad was, sort of skeptical, but heard the research, and then his final thing was, I just don't have the time. 20 minutes twice a day, I just don't have the time. Now, this is where I think the mom had coached the son. Because the son said, Dad, there's 1,440 minutes in a day, and you don't have 40 minutes to take care of yourself, to be less stressed, to be a better dad. And then he said something that I knew the mom had said, for a little self-care. Self-care, a 15-year-old kid doesn't say self, 14-year-old kid doesn't say self-care. But the fact of the matter is, the trajectory that we are on is not sustainable. We can take medication to get to sleep, and we should. It's fine, whatever the doctor, I'm not anti-medication. And for anti-anxiety and for anti-hypertensive medication, fine. But it's not a solution. It's something we can do to sort of help us along the way. But the trajectory that we're on in our lives is not sustainable. And here's something that you can add to your life, that you can bring into you as you wish. They can be a wonderful tool to support you in fulfilling the aspirations you have for yourself and helping you overcome the stresses that we all are experiencing more and more and more. And I feel really badly I went so long, but Jim didn't cut me off.
Good. Thank you, Bobby. We funded GM actually started the funding. They actually paid for the first year of the program in the school, and then Chrysler picked it up for a year or two because the vice president of Chrysler learned and he loved the program, and so he decided to fund it for a couple years. But we've actually funded the school for about 14 years on our own, and the teachers basically work for almost nothing down there to help the kids. And so we're going to show you this. Now, Governor Snyder increased the funding of all the public schools. I don't know if you know what's going on in the public schools in Michigan and around the country, but a lot of schools, good schools, are losing their funding. So this school, after 20 years of having the program and seeing its benefits at the school, was forced to close last year. But it was a really successful school this has been publicized. This was on, what's the name of the show?
NBC Today Show.
NBC Today Show.
James, UAW does a lot of work in public schools.
Oh, great. So we appreciate your work at the public schools too. This is George and Carmen and Nandi, who own the art gallery right here beside the DIA, and they personally bootstrapped this school and made it a reality and brought the TM program in because they're both 40-year meditators as well, practicing TM. So we'd like to get started with this video.
Troy, that's helping students deal with this stress in a unique way. Here's NBC's Kevin Tibbles.
The boisterous kids at Detroit's Nataki Taliba School are really no different than any others. Except perhaps for 10 minutes twice a day when all they hear is silence. These students aren't napping, they're meditating. Transcendental meditation was brought to the West 40 years ago by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi and made popular by the Beatles in the late 60s. And today, it's used in this school as a stress buster.
It's not a religion, it's not a philosophy, it's not a way of life. It's simply a mental technique. It allows the system, the mind and the body to settle down and gain a very, very deep rest.
According to these kids, it helps.
I have a tendency to dwell on things that happened in the past, but when I meditate, then it helps me let them go.
I just pay attention better now.
After meditation, I feel great.
When we think of packing our kids off to school these days, we often worry about the problems. High stress, substance abuse, even violence. Things that threaten a child's education. But can 10 minutes of quiet time really make a difference? The research says yes. The University of Michigan followed 140 of the school's 10 to 14-year-olds.
They felt more connected, they felt happier, satisfied, peaceful, calm.
I used to get angry a lot, but now it's like I'm calming down.
And studies show meditating kids actually do better in school than kids who don't.
My grade point averages went up a lot. From a 3.4 to a 3.8. Now I'm doing much better. I've evolved. At first in science, I got a B, but now my grade is up to an A.
And when your grades are that good, who cares what your skeptical friends think?
They just think it's the weirdest thing in the world, because my best friend said that they would be able to sit that still for maybe 3 seconds, but they just telling us the best thing.
For today, Kevin Tibbles, NBC News, Detroit.
And joining us now is Nataki Taliba School Principal Carmen Anamdi. Carmen, good morning to you.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. Did this start out as a way to boost scores, or was your goal simply to get the kids focused?
You know, I learned to meditate about 30 years ago, and that was really the first time that I ever started thinking about stress and the impact that stress has on our behavior. So I thought, why not introduce this to 10-year-olds? We, if you notice now as adults, we're all in the bookstores getting the self-help books, and every time you read one, you think, gee, I wish somebody had told me this when I was 10. So really, that was my desire, is to really begin to make them aware of stress and how stress impacts on your behavior.
Well, they're clearly calm as I look at them behind you there. I'm wondering if this was a tough sell to the parents. Does transcendental meditation have a religious connotation, for example, to some folks?
No, not at all. We began the program 6 years ago, and there were 180 students at the time. There were only 8 families that did not allow their children to participate in the program. And I think it's the word meditation. I think that people associate that with religion. But there's absolutely no beliefs. That's why I like the technique. It doesn't impose on any of your beliefs or your lifestyle or anything. It's just a physical technique.
And I guess there were misconceptions I had that when I heard I was doing this segment, I went, did the hum. And that's not part of it. We saw those kids in absolute silence in the tape.
No. There isn't even any concentration. It's really a very free-flowing thing. I don't like anything that causes me to have to alter myself. The only discipline that this requires is that you do it every day. You know how you look in the mirror and you say, gee, I'm not physically fit, and so you go and exercise and you think that'll make you physically fit? No, not for that day. You have to do it over a period of time to really see any benefit.
This is not cheap. I know you've had some donations, some grants to the school, but it's an expensive proposition for most schools, I would think.
Oh, that's true. Yes, Chrysler, the Daimler Chrysler Foundation is the one that really initiated the program for us. And then General Motors also began to be one of our sponsors. But, you know, that's the way it is in this country. Anything that's healthy for us is expensive. It's like healthcare.
Hey, are the teachers doing this too?
The teachers do this too. We found that there were some studies that have been done across the nation that say that only 1 out of 4 teachers remains in the profession. And I think that's scary. And I think part of it is because teaching is a very demanding profession, very stressful, and so I'm glad to offer it as a health benefit.
Well, Carmen and Andy, thanks so much for coming on and talking about this.
She says thank you again. So we're just going to go through the research. This is the most powerful part of the presentation, I believe, is the over 700 scientific research studies have been done. 450 of them have been published in peer-reviewed scientific journals. And so we have the best quality research funded by the National Institutes of Health, the Department of Defense, University of Michigan has funded 20 studies. These studies have been done all around the world. And you're going to see some remarkable research here that shows these amazing changes for in a person's life when they learn. So I'm going to start out. These are some of the scientific journals that have published on research. As I said, 450 peer-reviewed scientific research studies that show really amazing benefits. The program objective is basically to focus on this main problem, which is to get rid of stress and burnout out of our lives. And so when we do that, then we have improved health, improved cognitive functioning, enhanced creativity, and improved organizational effectiveness, which is, I think, really important for the union. And I think the union could benefit tremendously from this in all areas, but not only improving their quality of life, but once there's a large enough group or number of people, it could actually help the bottom line of the company. So we're not just doing this for ourselves alone, but it helps all aspects of a company. So what we teach you in TM is something very simple. The active thinking level of the mind up here where everybody lives their life. I got to go here, I got to do this. Bobby talked about that. With Transcendental Meditation, all we're teaching you is something very simple. We teach you to quiet your mind down, quieter, 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 until you reach a state of silence. That silent level of the mind is the most powerful level of the mind. And when you experience that, remarkable rejuvenation and improved health and all these things happen. You're not even doing anything. You're doing nothing for 20 minutes, and all of a sudden, everything starts to feel better. So, has anybody ever heard of brain mapping? Mm-hmm. They do this all over the country now. It's basically what they're doing. You put a rubber stretch cap over your head, and they're basically telling you what part of the brain you're using. Mm-hmm. So if you're a organizer, if you're a scientist or something, probably using a lawyer or something, you're probably using the small part of the left front of the brain. If you're a creative person, artist, a movie maker, something, you're using a small part of the right brain when you're doing your profession. If you're an athlete, you're using another part of the brain. But something quite remarkable happens when you do this transcendental meditation that is not found in any other form of meditation. And this is that girl that was previously having her brain map there. This is her brain signature before she learned TM, sitting trying to relax. She's trying to relax. The left front of her brain is still activated. It's not shut off. When you have a connection between two areas of the brain, a line is formed. And so that means that this part of the brain is communicating with this part. A dark line means there's 90% connection. A a light-colored line means there's 10 or 15% connection. So this is what happens for most people's brain signature when they have their brain map. This is what it shows. This part, yes.
So you're speaking the lines then are the neurotransmitters?
No, this is just measuring the area of activity in this part of the brain. The neurotransmitters are in.
So it's a neural
It's a neural pathway.
Okay.
The neurotransmitters.
And
There's
that pathway.
billions of neurotransmitters in the brain.
Okay.
So this dot might represent 100 million or something. So what we're talking about is these two areas of the brain are communicating.
Okay.
Okay? Now, this is her before she learned to meditate. This is her after 3 months of practice of TM. This is called global brain alpha wave coherence. This is the best thing you can do for your brain. There's nothing better you can do for your brain than allow it to completely be connected. This means that all parts of the brain are being used in every activity you do. So what happens when you have that? You have increased intelligence growth rate, higher IQ, broader comprehension, increased creativity, improved problem solving, better grades in school, better job performance, improved athletic performance, improved memory, decreased blood pressure, decreased cortisol. All these amazing transformations happen, and the scientific research proves it. I'm not making this stuff up. These are the things that happen when you do TM. Decreased trait anxiety. Go to the next slide. So this is something, a study that was done in Russia by a scientist who was doing studies on people practicing TM in Moscow, and he thought, well, let's see what happens with the blood flow in the brain when you're meditating. If there's this improved electrical activity, there must be something else going on. And so what happens before the person is practicing and during practice, you see this increased blood flow to the brain, and the more you meditate, the more the blood flow increases. So it actually reverses things like Alzheimer's and problems like that in the brain function because it's increasing nourishment, nutrients to the brain. Now, most people resort to this type of stimulant to get going in the morning, right?
Yeah.
Coffee. But what coffee does and other stimulants, these energy drinks and stuff that are really costing a lot of people a lot of problems, you see it interferes with brain chemistry, disrupts brain metabolism, just damages and kills brain cells, impairs ability to create memories, creates short-term and long-term memory problems. With TM, the exact opposite happens. The brain gets fully activated, and you just start to feel better and better and better and better. It's a snowball effect. The longer you do TM, the better you feel. So many people say that, well, I already practiced meditation, I've been practicing another form for these many years, and all the meditations are the same, right? Everybody just sits there with their eyes closed. There's not much going on, right? But actually now we have scientific research. The scientific research shows of all the studies that have ever been done on any form of meditation, and there's 300 forms of meditation you can learn in the United States today. 300. Of all the forms of meditation that are measurable, what happens is there's only 3 things happening in your meditation if you're practicing one of the 300 forms of meditation that have been studied. There's only 3 things. These are called brain signatures. The first category is focused attention, which is concentration techniques, okay? I taught in Japan for a couple years, and one of their favorite concentration meditations is you put a candle in the middle of the room, everybody sits around, they turn the lights off, and everybody stares at the candle. The idea is to reduce all this activity in your brain to one thing. So you just stare at the candle. But guess what? After about 5 minutes, you don't want to stare at your brain doesn't want to stare at the candle. It's very boring, okay? So this actually creates a very hyper state in the brain function called gamma frequency in the brain function, which is a very hyper state. And it actually creates stress in your physiology when you do this, because you're trying to hold the mind on one thing. Another category, many kinds of meditation fall into this category called open monitoring or contemplation techniques. Contemplation It means we're sitting there thinking about something. We have Christian prayer meditation, Buddhist chanting, Zen meditation, mindfulness meditation. There's hundreds of these forms of contemplation techniques. So I like to use the example of Zen. It's an ancient system where they do this contemplation thing. And in Zen, what they do is they give you a question to ponder. It's called a koan. Okay? A famous koan in Zen is, what is the sound of one hand clapping? Anybody got the answer to that one? Huh? It's silence.
That's right.
Nothing's happening. There's no, so silence. So you have the answer back there. Thank you. So that's a koan. So once you answer that question, we give you another question to ponder. But basically what happens to your brain when you're doing those kind of meditation techniques? Mindfulness is a very, very popular form of meditation. It's saying that they really, takes you months and months to actually, get and learn this form of meditation. But what happens is that your brain signature doesn't change at all. Your brain signature right now is theta production. When you sit to do one of these other techniques, it's theta production. There's nothing going on. Nothing changes. But this is what happens when you do transcendental meditation. It's called automatic self-transcending. What happens is the front of the brain, the back of the brain, and every other part of the brain where there's a lead on your scalp, a little wire touching your scalp, every part of the brain is doing exactly the same thing at the same time. Perfect harmony in your brain. No more scattered, crazy thinking. The brain gets organized. And this is the best thing you can do for your brain. As I already said, increased intelligence growth rate, higher IQ, broader comprehension. All these things happen when you do TM. Now, this is Dr. Tebow's area, and he's going to speak on this for a minute if you want to come up. And he's just going to talk about the benefits of TM for heart health. This is a big concern for many Americans because heart attack and stuff has been a major killer in the United States for the last 50 years. Dr. Tebow.
Thanks. Hi, guys. I love listening to Jim. I can listen to him all day. Same with Linda and same with Bobby. They're amazing speakers. I'm not in that ballpark at all. As you heard earlier, I'm a family doc. In practice 25 years, and I was very lucky to be exposed to TM when I was 15 years old. Exact same situation. I just went along with it because a family member wanted us to learn, and I just didn't want to have everything everybody else thought. But it didn't matter whether I believed it or not. And I didn't even realize anything was actually going on the first time I learned to meditate. When I came out of that meditation the first time, it was my own personal experience was really, really profound. Nobody was more surprised than me. I always give the example of like when you have a windshield full of ice and you scrape it, that was the difference for me. The vision, my hearing, everything was just amazing. In a nutshell, at 15 years old, I couldn't sit for 3 minutes. My grades were B's, maybe occasional C, never an A. Couldn't study, couldn't focus. Back in the day when we didn't know what ADD probably was, I'm sure I was a poster child. Literally learning to meditate instantly, I studied for about an hour at a time. My grades went right through the roof. And I really do credit my ability to get through college and med school and all the stuff of 25 years of practice to the techniques. So, and no problem talking about it anytime anybody has a question. So real quickly, in my practice, and all doctors will tell you this, all of us go to a doctor, I'm sure at some point, the big problems we see are totally related. Half of everybody in this country suffers from some kind of chronic disease. The big ones are hypertension. We fall over from heart attacks, we all fall over from stroke. We die prematurely. It's sobering to hear it, but it's the truth. And probably 99% of all the work I've done in 25 years, and I've made a hell of a good living, all of it preventable. Really should have been no need for me to be even doing what I'm doing. It's all preventable. This technique gives us that technology, and that's strictly what it is. It's a technology that helps prevent those problems. This slide here talks about a study that was done, very profound. showed over 200 African Americans were followed for a number of years, age of 59, with history of already had heart disease. And they found that by doing TM, as opposed to just comparing it to people that had diet and exercise and other health information, I think it even tells us right here that I think there was 47% reduction in heart attacks, strokes, and early death because of it. Very profound study.
And this, I'd just like to add that this study, basically, these were just the people who were instructed. Most of these people hardly practiced at all. They practiced once in a while. They still had a 47% reduction in heart disease.
Yeah, I think most of them averaged about one meditation.
Yeah.
Yeah, here, if they practiced at least once a day, it was actually a 66% change, reduction in heart attack, stroke, or death of the control group.
This actually is a great slide because it was done, I think this is the one that was done over 5 years through University of Wisconsin. And it shows here the difference between 66% difference between non-meditators. So huge effect.
But that's meditation in whole, no specific form.
No, that's
specific to TM. Again,
Specific to TM?
It's very specific.
So that study in Wisconsin was specific to
Yeah.
TM?
Yeah.
Okay,
All these slides are on
Okay.
transcendental.
So you guys
meditation.
use some of your own R&D money to get this going?
This was funded by the National Institutes of Health.
And
They funded the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Actually, I'm not sure we have ever funded any, it's all been done either through the universities on their grant money.
Right.
We've received grant money to do research, but again, sponsored.
So I
through
just,
universities.
yeah, just question, why didn't the University of Wisconsin, why did they just concentrate on TM and not do a
It's a great
cross-reference
question.
to
And actually,
multiple forms of meditation?
There's another slide here that compares it to these other techniques.
Thank you.
And, you know, bottom line is what's the best bang for your money, for your buck, right? It's not that there aren't other techniques over thousands of years that haven't been some helpful. We just had anybody, like that one showed the girl just sitting quietly. If everybody just sat quietly for 20 minutes twice a day, there's gonna be some benefit, no question. But what's the most effective? And not just a little bit, profoundly effective. And the other differences, and I don't know if Linda will talk about it or address it, but these effects aren't just good for the day. It's not good for 2 days or 2 weeks. It's cumulative. So you can actually scientifically do these studies, these EEG studies like they were just showing the brainwave coherence. You can map somebody out. Here's a 3-month meditator, here's a 3-year meditator, here's a 30-year meditator. So the effects aren't just good for the day, they're cumulative. Now, like anything else we do good in our lives, you do one good thing and 10 bad things. Yeah. So to get the best bang for your buck, as you develop more coherence and more efficiency, you make better decisions in your life. The more better decisions you make, better things go, the smoother things go. So, anyway, specifically in blood pressure, we look at blood pressure very significantly because it's the gateway to all these other diseases, the strokes, the heart attacks. And in this study here, this one was done comparing it actually to a couple other techniques. Just progressive muscle relaxation.
Eyes closed meditation.
Eyes closed.
Yeah, just sitting.
And TM. And here you see literally twice as much benefit in lowering your blood pressure, somewhere between 12 and 14 points. So that's significant.
What was the EC you want to explain?
Just eyes
Education
closed. Just
EC
sitting,
as well?
people sitting with their eyes closed, trying to relax in their own different ways.
So this was a bigger study, 107 studies, all put together these other techniques you were referring to, muscle relaxation, stress management, biofeedback, and combining all of those as well as mindfulness meditation. As you can see, compared to TM, the change in blood pressure is so much. Actually, in combined treatment, the blood pressure actually went up on an average, whereas TM you saw a significant decrease.
It's more than twice the average. Of
More than double.
More than double.
Atherosclerosis, this is where the arteries, as we get a little bit older, we find that over time, the arteries tend to get more stiff and thicker, decreasing circulation to the brain and to the other major organs. So over time, they were able to show that TM, compared to just educating people about eating lower fat diets, lower cholesterol diets, exercising, they showed a significant decrease in that thickness, thereby certainly sustaining a longer period of time before these kind of diseases set in.
Chronic heart patient.
So, yeah, in coronary heart disease, we're seeing such an epidemic these days in diabetes and everything that goes along with it. Diabetes being a systemic health condition, affects the heart, the kidneys, the circulatory system. This shows that actually with prolonged meditation, the ability of the body to absorb insulin and lower blood glucose improves dramatically compared to just educating people with diet.
That's not type 2 diabetes.
Yeah, all diabetes. Insulin dependent. These people already had diabetes too.
You're saying juvenile diabetes or something?
Oh, you know, I don't think
Maybe another question.
Yeah, the study wasn't done on juvenile diabetes, but I can't imagine it wouldn't be. Somebody had a question. That was it. This is a great new slide. I'm not as familiar with it, but this is a great new thing that Dr. Ross was talking about. How the American Heart Association now absolutely has said, looked at all this research and said there's only one technique that we know lowers blood pressure systematically among most people, and they're recommending it. For doctors, there's this category A, B, and C that they give us as recommendations. And A means there's categorically no question that it's the best thing to be giving everybody. Category B is for most people, and category C hasn't shown any benefit. Doesn't mean you can't recommend it as a doctor, but they come out and said here now that after looking at all the research, that TM will be a category A and B recommendation for physicians, for primary care physicians, for all patients. That's pretty significant. It's the American Heart Association saying, hey, this one technique is going to benefit lowering your blood pressure.
But it doesn't endorse other.
Absolutely, because here they put all other techniques in meditation receive a category 3 or C recommendation, which means no benefit. TM being the only one that's shown. And that's really the bottom line. As a doctor, you got to be able to say, hey, it's my reputation. Now, does that mean you shouldn't be taking your medicine? No. It's been my experience that adding TM to your current medical regimen usually requires less use of those medications, and the goal, hopefully, getting you off medication. I juggle medicines all day long. It's arduous, and it comes with side effects, and it's expensive, and it stresses me to no end. So anything I can do for my patients that'll prevent that from developing over time, that's the bottom line. It's all about prevention these days. Yes, sir.
So as a family practitioner, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen patients of your own that you've recommended this to, that maybe you prescribed 10 milligram lisinopril to, that are suddenly no longer needing to take that anymore?
Absolutely. Yeah, and to take it to the next level, unfortunately, I don't end up seeing them very often. They get healthier and they don't have to come into the doctor very often. Just like smokers, for instance. Smokers see me 3 times more often than non-smokers. So like that, the meditators see their doctor probably at least 3 times less often than just don't need it. And that's absolutely the best thing you can do, is be able to say to a patient, look, I can reduce your medicine from 10 to 5 milligrams now. Let's see if we can get you off the insulin. Again, as you feel better and you're more refreshed and you're less stressed, you tend to make better decisions. What do you see your doctor for in a visit? 10 minutes, 20 minutes at best? You got to go live your life after that when you go out of this. So we're all well-meaning when we're in the doctor's office. Yes, doc, I know I need to exercise. I need to lose weight. I need to exercise. I need to quit smoking. When you walk out the door, it's a little tougher. So anything that gives you that ability to have more insight, more comprehension, make better decisions, all those things start to fall into line much better.
So thank you very much, Dr. Tebow. So Linda and I are going to switch now. You're going to hear the real brains of the operation talk about it.
Yeah, all the difficult questions I'm going to send that way. Transcendental meditation, it's just a very simple mental technique. We take that active level of the mind and allow the mind to settle down to quieter and quieter levels. At the same time, the body also settles down and gains a very deep level of rest, even deeper than sleep. So So in a very short amount of time, we're giving the body a very deep level of rest. When we practice the technique, we're just sitting in a chair, comfortably, with our arm like that. But you'll feel the difference. Because of that very deep level of rest gained in the physiology, you will actually feel that deep level of rest. And it's that deep level of rest that allows us to get rid of stress. And that's why we can see all of these health benefits, because they say that stress causes or contributes to about 90% of all disease. So you get rid of the stress and you notice these improvements in your health. This is a study just comparing practicing TM to sitting in a chair with the eyes closed. And actually this is a meta-analysis of 32 previously published studies. But it looks at the degree of relaxation gained in the physiology. And it's a far greater degree of rest in the physiology due to TM versus just sitting in a chair with eyes closed.
This is a lie detector test, so if you got like a lot of tickets from Detroit City and you have to go into court, you just meditate before you go in and, ace the lie detector test and get off.
We can't guarantee that.
Question, is there ever like, what would happen if you meditate 3 times a day? Or is there ever a time when you have to meditate more than those 2 times that are recommended doing it inside the same day?
Right. Well, over time, as you continue to do it regularly twice a day, you'll find that you're better able to manage the stressful situations that come up. But we do give you recommendations as to times when you could do it more. Generally, we find we don't need to, and we're enjoying life and we don't need to, but there are some times when you could do more. And then you'll notice a little bit calmer result from that. This is a study looking, again, a meta-analysis. This is looking at 146 previously published studies on the reduction of anxiety. And anxiety is very prevalent in our society today. And we're looking at the comparison of TM to other meditation and self-development programs. And we're finding that TM is about twice as effective at reducing anxiety as any of the other techniques, any of the other programs. The second thing on the chart there is placebo. Just sitting in a chair with your eyes closed. And other techniques are even less effective than just sitting in a chair with the eyes closed. And on the bottom of the chart are concentration techniques. Because of the effort involved in doing a concentration technique, it actually causes some stress and anxiety. So TM very effective at reducing anxiety, and even people that have high levels of anxiety also see a very dramatic decline. This is also just comparing TM to mindfulness on anxiety reduction and a greater reduction with the TM program. Some of our studies are done using insurance in Canada because everybody has the same insurance and the same access to care. And this is looking at reasons why someone would be admitted to the hospital. And so we find that TM practitioners do go to the hospital when appropriate. The childbirth category is a little bit higher for TM practitioners, but for all the disease categories, far fewer admissions, 87% fewer admissions for heart disease, 55% fewer admissions for cancer, 93% fewer admissions for diseases of the nervous system. And even if you learn TM when you're older, next slide, if you are 65 years of age when you start, usually as we age, we think our body's not going to be functioning quite as well. Well, this study looked at a group that learned TM at age 65, but they also looked at the healthcare costs for the 9 years prior to the start of the TM program. And generally, over time, over those 9 years, healthcare costs had continued to increase. But when the participants that were part of the TM group learned at age 65, their healthcare costs dropped by 71% within 5 years. Whereas the control group, those people not practicing TM, their healthcare costs continue to rise as they aged. When we're meditating, we're giving the body a deep level of rest twice a day. And then many people find that they sleep better also as a result. And so if we're giving the body a very deep level of rest, It's easier for us to come out of a meditation and move spontaneously, automatically to healthier habits. Maybe I don't need that cigarette, or maybe this doesn't taste good anymore, and people spontaneously reduce or eliminate. This is a study looking at reduction of cigarette use compared to conventional and even non-conventional methodologies, and a far greater result with the TM practice.
Also alcohol.
And we also see that with reduction in alcohol and recreational drug use as well. Improvement in chronic illnesses we don't necessarily have a cure for, but finding anywhere from 60 to 90% improvement in symptoms, arthritis, asthma, bronchitis, headache, diabetes, and those factors that tend to get worse as we age actually tend to improve through the regular practice. Cholesterol, reaction time, memory, creativity, intelligence, insomnia, quality of sleep, depression, immune system efficiency. And then I know someone had been asking the question before about the benefits over time. Well, if you continue to meditate twice a day for 5 years or more, you tend to have a biological age which is 12 years younger. So let's say you learn TM at age 35, practice for 5 years. By the time your body is 40 years old, it will be functioning and have the quality of life as a 28-year-old. So it's improving the quality of functioning of your physiology as you age. Newer research is coming out showing that practicing TM can actually influence our physiology at the DNA level. We hear a lot about genetic research and whether a gene is turned on or turned off. That can influence whether or not we are prone to a particular disease. And this will actually change the regulation of the gene expression in a positive direction. And I think at this time I'm going to turn it back over to Jim. He's going to mention a few additional points and then we'll conclude.
So the category of social behavior, a person that can't, that's overloaded with stress and so on, we're going to just talk about this briefly. The first slide we're going to see here is a study that was done in Africa, actually, that was conducted by he was Colonel Reese of the U.S. Army, and he conducted this research with war refugees in the Congo in Africa who had the highest level of PTSD that was almost measurable, because they had been war refugees through horrible things that happened in war in Africa. And this amazing study shows that the people who, they had, of course, a control group, the people who learned TM, 50% of the people learned TM, they had complete cessation of all PTSD symptoms within 30 days. And this is kind of like unheard of, remarkable, that, and they were non-systematic for the whole study, symptomatic for the whole study after that. Wait for just a second. This for 140 days. Their PTSD was actually getting better and better even over that period. In this next slide, it shows
What are the symptoms of PTSD?
The symptoms of PTSD are not being able to sleep, not being able to eat, not being able to socialize with people, hiding in your house all the time.
Okay, those are effects, not symptoms, but yes, okay. I agree.
Well, these are, high blood pressure,
right,
high anxiety, high cortisol. They're all measurable in physiology. You can measure cortisol,
right,
epinephrine.
But again, those are effects, not symptoms. Those are effects of PTSD. So we can't prevent the symptoms of PTSD, but we can control the effects.
Well, right.
What do you mean by the symptoms? What is your definition?
I guess you're talking about symptoms of PTSD. Well, symptoms of PTSD can be symptomatic of many things. Okay,
it's a spectrum.
Right, it's a spectrum.
It's a whole bunch of things.
Yeah. You're talking about making a difference in the effects of
it in the first
PTSD.
place.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if you have PTSD and you can't sleep at night, when you learn TM, you can sleep at night.
Okay.
If you have PTSD and you have very high blood pressure, when you learn TM, your blood pressure goes back to normal. This is basically solving.
What about the hypervigilance?
The hypervigilance, same thing.
Okay.
Same thing. Yeah. All these things that are indicated of this. And so basically what happens in PTSD, and I'm not a medical doctor or a scientist, so I can't talk about this stuff in that way, but my understanding as a layman is that when you have PTSD, the front of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, actually gets shut off. Basically, the research shows the whole front of the brain is like there's no electrical activity when you've been under this hypervigilance, staying up for day and night in Iraq or Afghanistan. Your brain doesn't function anymore very well. So the whole front of the brain gets shut off, and you have a tendency to do instinctual reactions to everything. Everything, somebody says something to you, you react this way, you react that way. And what happens with TM is that the whole front of the brain that was shut off gets reactivated. The brain gets turned back on. And so this is why when you talk about global brain alpha wave coherence, the whole brain every day gets reactivated, reactivated. So this is a group of students in California. We've taught at 5 schools there. The first school to learn in California was Visitation Valley. Are you showing anything? Visitation Valley was considered the most violent school in the United States, or at least in the western United States at this time. 2007, 2008, the government of California, the state of California, was going to close the school. They had 6 months. James Durkee, one of the top educators in the West Coast, he decided, he heard about TM, the Quiet Time program, where the students just go and sit quietly. So he had the highest suspension rates, which is usually indicative of the level of turbulence in the school. And so he adopted the program in 2007, 2008, the end of the year. What happened was something unbelievable. Within 2 years, they had the lowest suspension rate, less than half the statewide average. And all violence stopped at that school. They used to call it the fight school because the police were there all the time. All violence stopped at that school within 3 months, and they'd never had one fight at this school in 11 years. We're not talking about reducing the violence, we're talking about eliminating it. So this is kind of quite remarkable. So when that happened, of course, math achievement scores increased, English achievement, higher graduation rates, lower dropout rates.
And say this is when my daughter called me up. She lives in Berkeley, California. She called me up and said, "Dad, they're doing, because she knew about that school. Said you got to really check into this, what they're doing, what TM is doing with schools."
And what happened then is this school, which was having the lowest performance levels on the West Coast, which is why the state was going to close it, in 3 years, they started to compete with the highest quality schools, the best schools in California. They were still in the worst zip code in the city of San Francisco, but all of a sudden they're competing with the best schools in San Francisco. Their students are graduating, going to the top schools in the state. And so this is what we find. So we have programs in the military around the world. Colombia adopted it for their violence, which was overwhelming the country. And they basically, Colombia was considered the second most dangerous country on earth to visit after Iraq. Okay? So they had this overwhelming amount of violence. So what happened was the government heard about this and said, let's try this in our military. So they taught 10,000 military cadet trainees to do this. And what happened is the violence due to drugs and cocaine use or whatever, cocaine production in Colombia basically stopped or almost went to zero. And Colombia became one of the safest countries in South America to visit after that. This is our demonstration for the Clintons. In 1993, we went to Washington, D.C. with 3,000 people, and we meditated together doing the advanced techniques of meditation to demonstrate that we could lower the crime rate in Washington, D.C., which was called the murder capital of the world at that time. And when we went there, the crime rate was going up and up and up every month. And after this program was implemented, we were there for 6 weeks. All these people are just on vacation from all across the country, all kinds of people. Within 6 weeks, we had a 27% drop in all forms of violent crime in Washington, D.C. Kind of remarkable. I was helping, there were 6 universities conducting the research, University of Maryland, Catholic University, and so on. They were all collecting the data. I was just happening to be associated with, I was librarying some of the research that was coming up, some of the reports from different organizations like the Washington, D.C. Police Department and so on. And if it hadn't been for one shooting incident during that time in Washington, D.C., the crime rate is kind of a random, somebody went into a public pool and shot a bunch of people. And they didn't know why. But if it hadn't been for that one shooting incident, the crime rate during this study would have dropped 80% or more. That's like amazing results. And so basically we're going to wrap up. And we can tell you a little bit how we teach the technique and go through the steps, which is the end of this. We're basically at the end of this introductory presentation here. But we can talk about the mechanics, what we teach you and how it works and what you're going to learn if you decide to learn the technique. And then if you decide to go forward, there's a very simple application process. We have a one-page form application. Do we have that here close by? We have a one-page form that we can show you. It's just a demographic information. You fill that out just for you and the teacher to see. Nobody else sees it. And that allows us to teach you properly. And then we basically, you apply for the tuition assistance if you're at Ford and you qualify. And you can apply for it through that program. And you just go to this website here.
Yeah.
Would you like to talk about it?
Yeah. So if you can decide if there's a number of people that want to start, if they want to do as a group or if you want to learn just individually. But basically, you can apply through your tuition assistance program. I'm sure you all know how to do that. And then they give you a confirmation that you were approved. And you just provide that to the TM teacher. But then we offer this as a university course. We have a university in Iowa called Maharishi University of Management. And you have to then go out to that website, the Tuition Assistance Program website, and just enroll as a student at that university. And that gets you started there. Oh, by the way, did we tell you that practicing TM is as easy as falling off a log? Anyway, but the course structure then to get your college credits through the university so that it will satisfy the TAP requirements. You come to an introductory talk like this. As Jim said, there's just a few more follow-up pieces of information that are needed beyond what we've done right now. Instruction takes place over 4 consecutive days for about an hour and a half each day. And, as he said before, oftentimes when people come to our office, they start on a Saturday, their day off, come Sunday, and after work Monday and Tuesday. If you decide maybe people here want to start as a group, something like that, maybe we could do lunch hour meetings or something like that. The first of those 4 days is a private meeting, one-on-one with your teacher. So if you do start as a group, then we would schedule like 1-hour meetings all throughout the day. So each person just comes for their time slot to learn the technique, and then we all come to group meetings the following 3 days. Then over the next 4 months, in order to get the course credit, you come to 5 group meetings and 2 personal meetings with your teacher. The personal meetings, we just meditate with you, see how it's going. Usually those are only like 30 to 40 minutes. The group meetings are usually about an hour and 15 minutes, something like that. And then you just maintain a log. We'll give you a calendar. You can just maintain a log of meditating regularly for 2 months, just so that we can know that you're off on a good track, making sure everything's going smoothly with it. Did you have a question?
Yes. If we did take this course, where are you guys located?
Our office is in Troy. We're very close to the Somerset Mall, so you're welcome to go there. If people, for some reason, happen to be closer to Ann Arbor, We do have teachers in the Ann Arbor area as well.
So when you refer, Linda, as teachers, are there therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists? Who's involved as a teaching group?
So the TM teachers have come from all different walks of life, but they have received a very specific certification to teach this particular technique. We go to a very lengthy teacher training course. Mine was 5 months in residence, and basically they schedule every minute of every day for 5 months for you, because there's a lot of information that you learn when you become a teacher, and they want the teachers to be practicing not only TM, but the advanced programs as well, so they have more experiences with the knowledge and can help their students in many ways. Yes?
I think what I'd like to do is, we have 20-some people that work here full-time. They're not all in here today. I'd like to do a group here of the people that actually work here.
Okay, great.
But I need to talk to everybody and figure it out. Then some of them, like the local 42 staff, you guys would have education benefits, but we'll figure out what the local can pay for them probably. But everybody else, well, not everybody has that.
We have to check the retail.
Yeah, we gotta find out about the retirees too.
Oh,
They-
okay.
They have education benefits, but they're a little bit different. But I would think if it's ETAP approved, I would think, yeah.
There's some specifics for that.
So we need to check a few things out and figure it out, but I would like to do a group here.
Good. That'd be fine. That's what we really felt would be good, is to have a group of people try it out, and see what happens. And if people like it, they can report it to other members. You know, it's just, that's a good way to go, because most of our, I'd say over 50% of the people come to our office are referrals.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Okay, Steve. So, we wanted to thank everyone for having us here. Robert Mosley was responsible for organizing this event, and we really want to thank you. And we want to thank you for having us here. Appreciate it very much. Your name is, sorry again?
Bernie.
Bernie.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you having us here and inviting us to go to the next step with this program. And Dr. Tebow.
Thanks, guys, for coming and listening to me, too. I left some cards, mostly, obviously, if you had a question you wanted about the medical end, feel free to call me anytime. You don't have to see me as a patient. If you want, that's fine, too. I always do that. But more importantly, if you learn the technique and you want to tell your doctor, and he may not know much about it, give him my card, and I will talk to him, and I can explain to him how it can benefit his own patients and him, too. So, anything like that. By the way, I have a very close uncle, one of my closest uncles. He just hit 50 years here at Ford. And I'm so proud of him. He's just awesome.